You are an immortal, so old you were there before the gods and magic. Once in a while, you tell of the times when men flew without the use of magic, when men went beyond the skies and to the bottom of the oceans, the legends of humanity to the others. Okay, Marlin, I think you've had enough. We've heard your crazy stories before. We don't need to hear them again. A disheveled man of long black hair and beard slammed his fist on the bar, drinks and bottles lined along its wooden length, clinking as they shook. I'm telling you, Bob, it's all gone to crap. This is worse than the Dark Ages 3,000 years ago. The man stood, his glass spilling as he spun to face the rest of the bar, checking his fingers and then thrusting 3 out. 3,000 years ago. The other patrons barely raised an eyebrow at the man they knew well, at the stories they had all heard many times before. The strange recluse who lived on the mountain overlooking the small border town only came down to drink and tell his strange tales. As far as they knew, he'd always just been there. A small boy ran to his side as he stumbled, almost falling. He grabbed Marlin's hand. Come on, Marlin, I'll help you to your horse. Horse? Billy, in my days we had cars, and trains, and planes. Marlin grumbled as he let the boy take him, the other patrons smiling and laughing at the sight. As they reached the door, Billy put Marlin's heavy hand to a small panel of grey slate against the wall. It lit with a soft glow, which shifted to the panel and disappeared. A pleasure as always, Marlin. See you tomorrow, the barman said. Screw you, Bill. The moon shone bright along the dusty mountain path as Billy led Marlin and his horse back. He didn't mind doing it. Marlin was good to him and his family, and always seemed to have more than enough magic to pay with, even though he hated it. Even more, Billy loved coming here. As they rounded the final corner, he could already hear the strange whirring of the machines, as Marlin called them, the hissing of air, the turning of cogs, the pumping of engines. Light came from the windows of the small shack, somehow powered by the machines and not magic. Marlin had promised he would one day show Billy how, but Billy's father had warned him never listen to such things, for such things in this world meant death, and Marlin's time would surely come once the mages came, but they'd never come to this town. Why would they? Tying Mandy, Marlin's horse, to the post outside the house, Billy shook Marlin's leg, trying to wake the snoring man dangling over the horse. Unable to do so, he pulled instead. Marlin fell to the floor in a heap and carried on sleeping. Taking a blanket from a chair on the porch, he covered the sleeping man. He knew it would be useless to try and wake him now. After giving Mandy some hay and a few welcome scratches on the chin, he left. He'd come back tomorrow to get his payment and make sure Marlin didn't sleep too long in the morning sun. Blinding light and a pain in the head started Marlin's day like most. As he stirred, a wet muzzle nudged at his side. Okay, Mandy. Okay, Mandy. I'm up. I'm up. He stood, dusting off his clothes as a blanket fell to the floor. He picked it up, smiling. Mandy was tied to the post, water and hay nearby. Billy was a good kid, although he was usually the one to wake him and get his pay. The sun was already a quarter of the way through the sky. Strange he hadn't come yet. As if on cue, Marlin heard the sound of light footsteps slapping against the rocky path. Billy appeared soon after. Something was wrong. His eyes were red, tears streaming down his face. Marlin, run! They've come. They've come. How many? Marlin asked, not needing to query who. 5, one of them of the high order. They're asking around for anyone doing things like you, with machines. Of course they were. And no doubt people were already talking. You have to go. If they find you, they'll... Billy, take a different path down the mountain and go to your mother. Stay inside. I'll be fine. Trust me. I'll come to you later, okay? But, no buts. Go, now. Take Mandy. Marlin gave the boy a firm look that seemed to shake him from his worry. He nodded, untying Mandy and galloping off. Marlin turned to look at the house that had been his home for the last 60 years. It had been a good run, but there was no running from a mage of the high order. How long had it been since he'd fought one of them? He smiled. Too long. He lives up on the mountainside, rarely comes into town except for drinking and getting supplies. The mage, clad in all black robes, golden hair tied in neat rows over his head and down his beard, smiled. Behind him, his subordinates stood unmoving in the quiet tavern, hoods pulled over their heads, grey robes embroidered in silver patterns glimmering. And this man you speak of indulges in the damned ways. Can't ever shut him up about it. A man drinking on a table to one side said. The barman nodded. Thank you, the mage said, turning to leave. The smile grew. Outside the tavern, he peered up at the mountain, through the now dimly lit street, lined with oil lamps. We should go at once, Sir Harold, his second-in-command, Apprentice Mayborn, said. Patience, young apprentice. But sir, there is only so much information we can gather in such a small... Harold raised his hand. All things to be enjoyed should be done so with patience, and not without a certain sense of caution. Mayborn and the other mages looked at each other. Surely a mage of the high order. Silence, apprentice, if you value your life. Mayborn and the other mages fell silent and rigid. They knew Harold was being punished with this mission. Naturally, they wondered why. Perhaps they even questioned his ability. Harold would show them otherwise, and perhaps blow off a little steam in the process. He clicked his fingers, a small flame sparking from the rub of flesh. The hand slowly fell until the arm was extended towards the tavern, palm open. The spark grew into a ball, spinning and rotating, like snakes of flame tangled and writhing. I would rather like the opportunity to set my own terms of battle, should it be waged. Harold spoke, his men silent, faces lit by the flickers of flame. If this mysterious fellow values anyone or anything in this horrid town of nil importance, then this ought to get his attention. If not, then at least we have some overdue fun before chasing him down. After all, they could all be complicit in his betrayal of our laws. Harold's blue eyes grew red as if a sunset falling over the sky. The ball of flame grew, a dragon-like face roaring at the edges as if trying to escape. Flames flicked and licked against the edges of the tavern timber. Harold laughed. His palm closed. The ball exploded, engulfing the tavern in rippling red and yellow flames, bending and whipping around the structure, searching and destroying, igniting all in its path. Screams joined Harold's manic laughing. The apprentices fell to their knees in the face of such power. On the mountain, a waiting man began to move. Marlin felt the heat long before he arrived in the burning town. His footsteps were slow and measured. The screams that had urged his sprint long since ceased. The visage of terror below only growing. Diving and splashing like waves of magma between the wooden structures was a roaring snake-like dragon of fire, its long tail hugging the edges of the town, forbidding the flame to spread any further and trapping all within. Trails of blackened earth spread across the land in long strips of death, destroyed carts and clumps of ash, sticky and hot like tar. The highest order, the lowest regard for life. The dragon reared up once more above the town, eyes glowing yellow as it turned its head of flame to behold Marlin's approach. Down it rescinded into the red pool of heat. A narrow opening formed in the circle of death, leading down a path to the main street, beckoning Marlin to enter. Marlin's face was hard stone, his jaw clenched, the lips cracked to form a smile, his unblinking eyes wide with the dancing reflection of flame. The heavy long coat full of his devices crashed to the floor. His fists shook, the knuckles white. If he was to wage battle, it would be on his own terms, and in destroying the town, the mages had lost any hope of a fair one. A feeling stormed in his belly, long forgotten and foreign. Dangerous is a reason given to a lost man. Billy, your death will be avenged. Marlin walked into the fire, his clothes burning to ash, his skin to glowing red, his smile wider.